Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I am really excited to have my guest Susan here. For one reason, you're my first physician assistant on this podcast. So I am excited to hear your story. I'm excited to see you in person. I've seen you online this whole time. And I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. You've stood out to me on LinkedIn. Since I've been on LinkedIn, your name pops up. We kind of run around the same circles. We show up on the same posts. And I just love how you show up, and you stood out to me. And I said, I really would love to get to know you and know your story, especially because you're coming at the medical legal side of things in a different way. You're not a nurse. You're not a nurse practitioner. You're a PA. So tell me first where in the world you're coming from. Where in the country are you at?
So I am in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Okay.
We lived for about 6 years, but I'm originally a New Englander. I grew up in Connecticut and spent the majority of my life up there in New York City when I went to PA school. So I lived there for 2 years. But yeah, I'm a northern girl living in a southern world.
Yeah. And you're on the other coast. You're on that other coast over there.
we are the East Coast San Diego.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love it. Does it have the same weather as San Diego? Because San Diego really has the perfect weather.
Yeah, the weather's pretty good. I would say it's probably, I've never lived in San Diego year round, so I don't know how cold it gets in the winter, but I'd say I've been to San Diego and I'd say the weather is pretty reasonable.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So you grew up on the East Coast, Connecticut. Where did you go to college? I love finding people's backgrounds.
I went to Fairfield University, which is in Connecticut, in Connecticut. Uh-huh. And then I did my PA school at Long Island University in New York, so Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, so what was your bachelor's degree in?
I got a bachelor's degree in biology, so I was originally pre-med, looking to get to med school. I didn't follow a straight path. I graduated high school and I went to college, but then I transferred. My freshman year, I went to the University of Rhode Island. Then I transferred home, and I was going to school part-time, and I started working as an ER tech. Okay. So I liked that. I loved it, the excitement, the work, and I started doing that, and then I started doing part-time school. So I was working the night shift for a while. I tried to do a full semester with full-time school on the night shift, and it was impossible.
Yeah, no way.
Miserable. I was falling asleep in calculus and up at the end of the class being like, oh, what did I miss? Yeah. But I was so interested in what I was doing that I was like, okay with just going to school part-time. And I worked as a tech for quite a while until I reached the point where like, all right, I need to move on. So I finished up what I needed for school and I started applying to PA programs. Yeah. So I had a big gap in there where I got life experience.
Sure. Okay. So my question to you is, where did the PA side come in? Where did you, I know you said you were pre-med, so you knew you wanted to go into medicine. So maybe that's the first question. What made you decide to want to go into medicine in the beginning?
So I don't know, for as long back as I can remember as a kid, that interested me. And I'm not really sure where it came from. I just was like, oh, I want to be a doctor. It changed what I wanted to do. I used to want to be a pediatrician when I was younger, and then I wanted to be a psychiatrist for a while, and then it varied.
Yeah.
But then I had never even heard of a PA. I didn't know what a PA was, but working in the ER, there were a lot of PAs, and the PAs there did so much. They did everything the physicians did. They saw the same patients. They were doing procedures, and I was like, this is great. And I had kind of been doing schooling for a while, and I wanted to just get into working. And I said, oh, let me think about PA school. I talked to some of the PAs that worked there, and I was very familiar with what the job was. And at that point I was like, I don't know that I want to do 4 more years of school and then a residency. And I love the fact that they have, and I still love this, the PAs were able to switch specialties, because if you're a physician, you choose a residency specialty, you're locked in unless you want to go back to residency. But as a PA, you don't have that. So that really interested me. And I was like, I can go to school for 2 years after my bachelor's, and this would be great. So that's where
that was it. Did you have anybody that was in your role that was in medicine, or you just was interesting to you?
No, my parents were both teachers, and my dad was an administrator, and my brother's a teacher. So,
so no, not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I mean, my aunt was a nurse, but it wasn't anything that I was really exposed to. I think she was, I vaguely remember her working as a nurse when I was a kid.
Right. Okay. So tell me more about PA school. And I'm saying this for selfish reasons, because I don't know much about it. I know plenty of PAs that I work with, but I really don't know much about PA school. So what can you describe PA school for those of us who don't know anything about PA school?
Absolutely. So generally you have a 4-year undergrad before going into PA school. Most PA schools are 2 years. Some of them are 3 years. They're all master's programs now. When I went to school 20 years ago, it wasn't a master's program. 20 years ago. There were some master's programs, but there were also bachelor's programs as well. It is like medical school in 2 years, 4 years and 2 years. So the first year is all didactic. So you're just in the classroom kind of, learning all this stuff, the bookwork, the classroom stuff. We also did patient contact. So I think it was once a week we went to the hospital and we were assigned a patient, and we had to do an H&P, and we had to, kind of go through what we thought it was. And then we would talk through it as a group or, with our instructor, and kind of come up with a plan of, what you would do for the patient, what you were thinking. So we got clinical experience right off the bat, but most of the first year was just schooling. The second year that's sort of like the first couple of years of med school kind of crammed in there. And some PA schools, that didactic part, you're in classes with med students.
Okay.
So then they kind of continue down more on the, dive of it.
Sure.
And the second year, you move into clinical rotations. So clinical rotations are just, it was like 5 or 6 weeks each of just doing different rotations, like surgery, internal medicine, ER, that kind of stuff will be. And then after that, you graduate and you have to take your boards, and you pass your boards, then you're a PA and you're free to practice.
So you basically get an exposure to all different specialties. Do you kind of like nursing school, in a very compact form, I'm sure. When you finished, did you know what specialty you wanted to be in based on that second year of different specialties? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So going into PA school, I always thought, I'm going to go back to the ER. I love the ER. Like, I'm going to be an ER practitioner. And when I finished, I thought, you know what? It was pretty sobering to, go back into the ER and say, okay, well, I've been a tech now for the last so many years, and now I'm going to be a PA. I felt a little like I needed to learn a little bit more before I actually, a little more experience, get a little more experience before I could go back in, because I was offered a job at the ER where I worked, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a little daunting. So I really loved orthopedics when I did an ortho rotation, and I loved surgery. So I was like, I think I'm going to go into orthopedics. So I did ortho for 8 years, and then I was like, all right, this is great. I got comfortable with it, but I was like, I think I'm ready to go back to the ER. So I switched and I went to the ER, and I've pretty much worked in emergency medicine or urgent care for the rest of my career, with the exception of a year of urology thrown in there and a little aesthetic side.
Okay. So with your orthopedic route, were you with one particular physician, or were you with a group, or were you with a hospital? What did that look like for you?
I was with a private group, and when I started, there were 3 physicians, 3 surgeons, and one of them I worked with most. He was the busiest, so I worked with him more often. And then I worked with the other 2 kind of as needed. They were older and sort of on their downslope of career. And then while I was there, another young physician came right out of fellowship, so I had him for a while as well. So it was mostly 2 guys that I worked with, but then 4 total. But the one surgeon I worked with the most, like we created such a bond. Like we were just that, like when you're in the OR and you just know, you work so well together. And that's one of the things I love about, being a PA and having a great supervising physician, is because you can just create this team that you just know what each other's doing, what they want, how, what to, they know what to expect. They know that they can trust you. And it's just, it's a great relationship when it works out like that.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And I know plenty of PAs, surgical PAs that have, they follow one particular surgeon, and in the beginning it's just, they get to know, and then as they move forward, they work so well together that it really helps. I know it helps the surgeons out. I mean, I'm a first assistant, so I jump into whoever needs help, and so I can only imagine having that connection with one particular person, or maybe a couple, and you just have this routine. What a dream that would be. I'm just saying that. I can picture right now. It would be such a dream for me. So much so. Okay, so then again, out of selfish reasons, but I know that there are people that want to know, because typically my questions that I ask, other people say, oh, I'm glad you asked that question. So when you started to work in the OR with your surgeons, how did you train for the OR? Did you have some OR experience from your clinical work in PA school, or did he kind of take you under his wings? What did that look like for you? I'm just curious.
So I had done a general surgery rotation, and I had also done an orthopedic surgery rotation. So I had the OR experience. I had been in the OR. I had scrubbed. I had first assisted. I had the luck of my last year in PA school. My surgery rotation was my last rotation. So it was at the end of, I think it was like, kind of June-ish. So a lot of people know that's when the residents kind of are switching over on July 1st. So some of the residents leave early because they've got a job that they're starting. So they were short residents in that month. And I fell right into the position of like, all right, you're going to be with Dr. So-and-so, and you're going to be, just with just the 2 of you. So here I was with a student, with an attending, and he was letting me close. He was letting me all this stuff. And so I got a lot of really good experience. I still remember the anesthesiologist, the attending finishes, and he's like, all right, the student's going to close. And the anesthesiologist looks over like, and because they're like, we're going to be here forever. But and he's like, what are you getting all up? He's like, nothing. And he's like, she's good. Like, he's like, she's quick. So I got the practice, and it was, And then my ortho job, I just, he taught me whatever I needed to know. I learned so much from him. And, yeah, the things that I didn't know ortho-wise,
Right.
I learned on the job.
From him. So you had a really great experience with that. I love that. I love, I know that look very well, that anesthesia look that says, oh, great, it's you closing. And it's like, yeah, please don't give me a moving target, doc. That's what we always say. Don't give me a
Yeah.
moving target. So I can relate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you worked in orthopedics and then you went back into emergency medicine and you stuck with that. That was like your home, right? You probably felt very much at home. And what was that like? Did you go back to the place, the hospital that you were at originally?
No, so I had moved. I grew up in the New Haven area in Connecticut, so I had moved at that point. My ortho job was up in the Hartford area, so I was living up there. So I started working at a hospital up there in the ER, and I was there maybe 2 years, I think it was. In that time, I met my husband. We got engaged, we got married, and he got a job in South Carolina, so we moved.
Yeah.
So I just came down
when
here.
you moved. Okay, so then you moved and picked up down there, and
I picked up an ER job down here.
Yeah. Okay, so I love getting to know the background of my guests. It's funny, and I think I've talked about this before, but I one particular nice person who made a comment on the podcast about the podcast being a 30-minute intro. And I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what it is, because we want to know your story, because we all have different stories.
Yeah.
And we end up meeting each other where we're at now, but everybody's had this, long and windy road. And, there are parts of that road that people connect with, and there are parts of that road that are unfamiliar. Like for me, I work with PAs, but I've never really asked them or, inquired about what their journey was like. And it's just interesting because we all have different journeys. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love telling my story. I love hearing other people's stories.
Right.
I've listened to your podcast. I know, it's nice because you're right. You see these people online, and you're like, oh yeah, they do this, but I don't really know anything about them. And then you hear something about their life, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. So you're doing everyone a service.
Well, I appreciate that, and I was like, I'm sorry, person. Then I guess this is not the podcast for you, because this is basically it. It's like everybody's intro. That's exactly what it is. Okay, so
it's your podcast. You can do whatever you want.
I know. I love it. I'm gonna keep asking those questions. Okay, so let's dive into now the medical legal side. So how did you first hear about or know that this site existed? I'm curious to hear what your story is on that.
So I had reached a point where I was burnt out from working in the ER, working in medicine, and I wanted to do something different. I was ready to leave and go be an interior designer.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
I was like, I'm going to go do something totally different. Maybe I'll do interior design. And then I kind of thought, all right, in reality, I would like to do something that I can use all of this experience that I've amassed, this education that I've gotten. How can I use this in a different way? So I was looking at various opportunities, different things, and I came across legal nurse consulting, and I was like, oh, what is this that they're doing? And I researched it a little bit, listened to some podcasts, read some stuff, and I was like, this is interesting. I'm like, are PAs doing this? But I couldn't really find any PAs that were doing it, other than PAs that were doing expert work. Okay. And I didn't want to do, well, one, you really can't make a job off of expert work. It's really a full-time job. This was something I wanted to do in place of my clinical position. So I thought, all right, everyone that I came in contact with, they had great advice, good information, but most of the PAs were just, I think I found like 2 that were doing some kind of stuff on the side, but most of them were just still working clinically, and they were doing expert work. but I came across nurses that were doing this as a full-time
Right.
job, people that were building, big businesses on it. And I thought, okay, there's definitely a need there. And being a PA, I certainly have the skill and the knowledge to do it.
Right.
So I looked into, taking a course because I wanted to see, is this really something that I would be interested in? And they had a course on Barbary. They do like a legal nurse course, a lot of legal courses on there, but there was a medical legal consultant course. I've never taken the LNC course, but I think it's the exact same course, just for like
geared towards,
right? Just has a different name. So I took that course to kind of get my feet wet and see what is this about, and I loved it. So I thought, all right, I'm gonna look into doing this. It still then took me, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years to really get into it, and make that decision that I was going to do it. I was kind of just trying to figure out, but in the meantime, I still did some research to figure out, what is it like to have a business? What is it that I need to do? What is marketing like?
Right.
What are the products and what are the services that you provide? So yeah, I finally then just made the leap and ripped the Band-Aid off. And I don't advise people when they ask me to just quit their job and do it. That's what I did, but we were in a place financially where it was okay, but it's very stressful when you're like, all right, I don't have anything that's any job and I have to go out and get business. So I wouldn't recommend that, but if you started, in this and then eventually built out to a place where you could quit your job and do this full time, it's completely feasible.
Right.
So,
okay. So then I find it so interesting because you had to kind of create your own path, really, because there was no, a bunch of courses or mentors or people like that were PAs that were doing it. Like you said, it was mostly those that were doing expert work. And so you had to take it upon yourself to go, okay, there are a bunch of nurses that are doing it. Well, it makes sense for PAs to do it, and then you find probably the one course that had it, and like you said, it probably was originally created for nurses. So I commend you for setting your own path, because it makes complete sense, and surprising that there aren't more PAs out there, but you led the way, led the charge to do it. So right on for you, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
I totally recognize that.
Part of my thought about it was like, if I can do this and show other PAs that they can do it, because I experienced so many people that are like, oh, that would be interesting, or I'd like to do this. And there were some PAs in the class that I took and they were interested in doing it, but they're kind of like, how do we do it? And I thought if I could do this, then I can show other PAs that they can and kind of help them figure out how they should be starting.
Yeah.
And it's really not different than how nurses start, right? I mean,
sure. You have a different title and a different set of scope of practice, and but you're still valuable to attorneys because you're speaking a different language than they're speaking, and like you speak that your scope is a higher scope of practice, and so you can come at it a little bit different, but the same concept. So for those PAs that are interested in, they're probably at the same crossroads you are, where it's like, all right, because a lot of people are getting, burnt out of medicine these days, a lot, and a lot of them are a lot younger. It doesn't take long now, unfortunately, for people to get burnt. So for those PAs out there that maybe listen to this one episode, what advice would you give them for going down that road? What would you tell them? Hey, I'm a PA. I really want to do this like you did. Where do I get started? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I have a lot of PAs that reach out to me They probably find me on LinkedIn, and yeah, I'm happy to talk to any PAs. I always tell them, I'm happy to talk and answer any questions that you have. I just, my advice is, like I said, don't put your job first.
Right.
Start this as sort of a side thing. I would take a course. I would take the course that I took was fine. It gives you an idea of what is involved in a civil case, right? So that you kind of know a little bit. And again, you're still, in the beginning when you start, you're like, okay, how do I apply all this?
Yeah.
But at least you have the tools that you've learned to apply. So I think that's helpful. Do you definitely need that? No, but I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
And then you just have to be the type of person that's okay with just hearing no or not hearing anything. You have to have a thick skin. You've got to just kind of, if you're an introvert who'd rather stay home, you're really not going to, this isn't really the thing for you. Like, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to just be, persistent, and have a sales mentality. Because most of us in medicine, we don't know sales mentality. I always say, I go into work and I have a list of patients, or I have patients in the waiting room, and I see them and that's it. And then I go home. I'm not looking for patients. So it's a different mentality. You have to be able to go out there and get it. And then, just constantly, you're going to be disappointed, and you have to just keep sticking with it. Like, be persistent. So if you're not that kind of person, this is not going to be the thing for you.
That's honest. That's honest. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, about the business side, about the marketing side, because like you said, we're not, as nurses or in medicine, we're not trained for business related things. And I think that physicians, when they start their practice nowadays, there's most of them are employee physicians, with the way that medicine is now. But going into private practice, it's kind of the same thing. They weren't really never taught, the business side of it. And especially for a PA or a nurse who's, working for something or someone, we're not really involved in that discussion. So how did you have any sort of background? Were you terrified of it? Where did you get started in understanding the business sales side of this? And then how did you move forward with that?
So before I started doing this, I had a little side gig as an aesthetics PA. Okay. So I was working in an urgent care at the time, but I was also doing concierge aesthetics. Okay. So I worked for a company that provided you with the training, provided you with the product, everything, but you still had to get your own clients or patients. So I got a taste of what it was like for marketing. If I was going to do it, I had to get out. And so I did a little marketing, locally to get people. So I had my feet wet in that sense of knowing, okay, this is what it's like to have to try to get people, get patients, get clients. So that part of it, and I learned some marketing from them, not much, but I learned a little bit from them. And then I also kind of supplemented on the side, just like, what is marketing? What is a funnel? What is what's a marketing funnel? And so I learned a little bit of that on the side myself. And then I was like, all right, if I want clients, I have to just go and meet people. Like, I'm looking for attorneys, so I need to just put myself in front of attorneys and put myself out there. And so it didn't terrify me. I'm pretty good in person. And that was kind of where I started, is I just was like, let me start locally. And I just went to attorneys' offices locally and had some information and was just introducing myself. Were there awkward moments of, meetings in the beginning where you're like, oh, I said that? Yeah. But it's, or, having conversations on LinkedIn, having, private messages on LinkedIn where you're just like, oh, this is terrible. But it gets easier as you get, used to it. It's like, okay, because I'm easy I have no problem just sitting and talking to
Sure.
someone. When you have it in your head, like, oh, but I'm trying to sell them on something,
Right.
it starts messing with your thought process. And I realized pretty quickly, like, you know what, just drop that and just act like this is a person you're here to meet, like anyone else.
Right.
And that was much easier and much, received much better. Instead of just being like, here, this is what I do. And this is what, it's like, just introducing myself. This is what, and you feel the more authentic you are and the more you are you, the much easier everything is. It's, you don't have to, you don't have to worry about what's coming next because you just know, you just respond the way you would normally respond.
Right. That's really good advice. So, your first attorney client, did that come from an in-person meeting, or did it come from an online meeting, or did it come from a random thing or a referral, or what was your first?
The first one was a cold email.
Okay.
They tell you not to do, right? They say, oh,
I'm a fan. Sorry.
Don't cold email. We hate cold email, but you know what? I had pretty good luck with cold email. So yeah, my first client was a cold email who responded and said, I have a case I'd like to talk to you about. And yeah, that was like,
that's interesting. I love that. I love that. I'm sorry.
And you're dancing around like, yes.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah, no, exactly. When you get the reply and you're like, wait, you want me? Okay. Yes. It's like you win the lottery or something. I totally, it's so exciting. That first one is so exciting. And I love the fact that you said call me emails. And yes, people say don't do it because there is a way to do it where it's not so cold. And I personally feel like what you said, when you're authentic and you're you and you're not just, fire hosing, here's what I do. Then there is a way to connect in an email. Because I have a very similar experience. Most of my first clients were all through email. Actually, most of my clients have all been through email. I don't send them out as often anymore, but if you do it the right way, you catch them at the right time. I had an attorney recently tell me that too, because I was talking to him about marketing and branding and, like, does this sound, too salesy or whatever? And I said, well, when you had replied to me, because his was based on an email marketing campaign, what were the chances that I had connected with you? He said, to be honest with you, you just catch them at the right time in the right place. They just opened the email at the right time, the right place. They had a case and he had a bad experience with somebody else. And so it was just like, I need help here. Can you help me? And it just happened to be that day I sent an email. So, and I really believe that. And once he said that, I went back and I looked at all of my interactions with those that had replied to emails where I had done. It was the same thing. It was like, I think I just caught them at the right time. I mean, you have to send out plenty of emails to get there and not get discouraged and not put any attachment on those communications. You just do it, and then you just hope you like catching a fish. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. I mean, that's exactly what I am. I'm just going to throw it out there and not be afraid or not like sit around and wait for someone to reply. So then when did you discover LinkedIn? Around the same time?
Yeah, it was the same time. I was like, okay, how am I going to market?
Right.
Because I knew, when I was doing aesthetics, I was doing marketing on Facebook, local Facebook groups. And I thought, okay, well, and I don't really think of attorneys as hanging out on Facebook. I don't, it doesn't seem like the right medium, or the right, arena for it. So I was like, LinkedIn, I hadn't been on LinkedIn. I know people say this, I'm sure there's a ton of people that, LinkedIn used to be where you go I'd look for a job if I needed a job.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't have anything on there. There was nothing. I don't even know if I had a picture. So I was like, all right, let me go on and check it out. And I'm like, it looks like people are actually using it for, marketing purposes or connecting and networking purposes. So I built a LinkedIn page and was like, all right, I guess I just have to start kind of trying to interact with people and try to post things and, sort of build something from there. But again, it's still awkward to me to just go in and be like, hey, slide into their DMs with like, hey, how are you? It's and not sound salesy and cheesy and, literally just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. If I can never do anything for you, let me know. But I know that, they say business happens in the follow-ups. So you have to follow up. And it's like, then you see attorneys posting on there, if I get one more, it's like, I don't know, are they referring to a message like mine or are they referring to somebody who's sending, because I've gotten those messages that are like 4 paragraphs long that are,
how can I help you?
Yes. Like, this is what I do. This is why you should, like you said, a fire hose of information. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is why I should be your financial planner. Like that's, I get a lot of those.
Yes, that.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And I imagine that that's exactly who they're referring to, because when you go back and you say, when you're authentically you and you're human, you stand out. I mean, even in the, I'm not your target market, I'm not an attorney, but you stood out because you show up and you're authentically you. And so if you stand out to another legal nurse, you're going to stand out to the attorneys or your target market or whoever that is, because you're just standing out, because you're just being you. So I can talk about that for days. What would you say? Well, first, what is your favorite thing about LinkedIn? Has it been, do you enjoy commenting? Do you enjoy creating? Do you enjoy, what is it? Do you even like LinkedIn? Because some people are like, I have to do it because it's business. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I like it, in general, I like it. Although I will say it's like any other social media, right? You get on it and you just, I would say I'm on it and it's my job now. I have to, like make sure that I'm out there and people can see me, and I have to post things and I have to comment on things, and my cat's feeder, in case you just heard. So it's like, okay, but then after a while, you're going through and you're like, oh, it's, an hour and a half later, and I've just been, you go down this rabbit hole and you're reading and you're commenting and you're into, just like you would on Facebook or Instagram, and then I feel bad because I've lost time when I should be doing other things. But I keep telling myself, like, no, that this is what I should be doing. But it's very easy it's very easy to get sidetracked on there.
Sure.
And so that's one thing I don't like about it. But what I like about it, obviously, is meeting people like you, meeting people that are just, and it's funny because maybe you comment, on their posts a few times here or there, you feel like you've built a connection. Like it really happens. You're just like, yeah, I know this person, even though I've never met them. I've never spoken to them on the phone, but I know this person. And it really speaks to the fact that people can see you and see what you post, and then they reach out to you when they need your services because they feel like they know you. And I think that's a great part of it. And I like that
you share that. Yeah, I love that you share that, because I don't know, it's not really my mission in life, but it's kind of my mission in life is for people not to be afraid, or to people to think that it is just work, right? It is just work. I just have to do this because it's my job, and in order for me to gain business, I have to do this, which it will always show you're not doing yourself a service if that's who you are. Because it will show, and it will only make you more frustrated. But when you come with it, you show up and you find the good things. I know that my boyfriend and I like to say, we look for the green trees. So we were in Tahoe. This is a weird random story. We were in Tahoe and we were at the top of the mountain, and it was a beautiful day. And we were talking about, we always talk about things like, positive things or like the negative things. And you could look down and see all of these trees. And some people will look at all of the dead trees, and some people will look at all of the green trees. So we constantly, if we're having like a bad day or whatever, or our kids, something is going on, we'll say, like, we're looking for the green trees. Let's look for the green trees. So I feel like you can use that in anything. And especially if you're sharing things on LinkedIn or you don't know what to do on LinkedIn, it's like, look for the green trees, look for the positives in it, because if you do, then you're more likely to show up, right? Like if you're dreading it, oh, I dread this, you're not going to show up. Your posts are not going to be very genuine. You're not going to be genuine, and it's okay because you probably don't. You don't want to put yourself out there. Plenty of people that don't want to put themselves out there because they're doing this for their business. I understand that too. But find some piece of joy in it so that you show up. And it's like you treat it like it's a fun part of your job.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, like you said earlier, if you're an introvert that's not, I mean, you can be an introvert and that's fine. There are plenty of places for, but if you're an introvert and you don't want to put yourself out there, or you feel like you can't handle no's, it's not really for you. It's kind of the same thing. Like, don't put yourself on LinkedIn if you don't want to enjoy some aspects of it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I would agree. You have to like what you're doing. You know, if it's a chore, then you're not going to look at it as a positive thing. And if you're putting yourself out there, I mean, yeah, if you don't have a thick skin and you're going to be upset that you're not getting, enough likes or enough, comments or impressions, and it does start to mess with you, when you're like anything in any social media. It's, kids go through this, and I can't even imagine what it's like to be growing up in the social media world. Because I mean, a high school, middle school, that's hard enough as it is being a kid. And now you've got social media. So, but the interesting thing is it doesn't really change as an adult, right? Like if you go on and you post a really good post and you're like, okay, this is good. And then it's like, I got 120 impressions. You're like, oh,
what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
What's wrong
like,
with me?
It makes you feel bad, and you're like, what is? And so that part of it, I don't like, but I don't like that about any social media.
No.
One of the other things I also don't like is the algorithm that makes you only see what they want you to see. I find it infuriating because it's just, and they do the same thing on Facebook. You just the same people. You're seeing the same people. It's like, I want to see a variety of stuff. So I don't like the idea that we are only seeing what they're letting us see, what they want us to see.
Yeah.
But I do like that. I do like, it's like a little corner of, you get to know these people, and it's like, this is the little, medical legal community, and attorneys, and you've got nurses, and you've got PAs, and you've got doctors, and and everyone's kind of giving each other a boost, and that's a good thing about it.
I love that. So what would your advice be? Because there are a lot of people that listen to this podcast now that they're like, okay, I want to do this. Where do I get started? When it comes to something like LinkedIn, what would your first thing, if someone came to you and asked you, okay, I want to do LinkedIn, where should I start? How should I show up? What would you say to them?
So I'd say first, make sure that you have a page that actually has stuff on it, like a picture and a description. And there's just nothing worse than going to someone's page, right? And there's no picture, there's no description, and you're like, who is this person? Is this even a real person?
Yeah.
Or is it some, bot that's, reaching out to me? So I would make sure you have a page. And again, it doesn't need to be a lot. It just, just put your stuff on there so people know who you are.
Yeah.
And then just get on there. Just get on there and connect with people and comment. Comment, engage. If you see something that you think is funny, then say it's funny. If you see something that speaks to you and you have don't be afraid to put it out there. I think a lot of people are afraid to put stuff out there. they're just like, what if somebody doesn't like it? Or what if someone, and I'm not going to lie, I'm careful sometimes if I don't want to start a war, or I don't want to get into it with someone, because I think we've all probably experienced where you post something and then someone goes after you and, there you are. And it's just, you be the bigger person and walk away, but don't not do it because you're afraid of that.
Yeah.
Just put it out there. Just put out your information or whatever it is you want to say, and it's going to be received well.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I was hoping that you would say, comment, because I think people initially, if we're going to talk about people that are just starting out, right? Initially, what to post is very overwhelming to most people. Yeah. And I think that we lose sight of the importance of commenting. I mean, most of the time we see each other in the comments. And if you're not commenting and you're liking things, that's fine if you're liking things. But if you comment, there's very few people that comment on things on LinkedIn, in my opinion. And if you were to really look at it, the number of comments under a post is minimal. So the more that you comment, and like you said, it doesn't have to be, you don't need to put yourself out there to, give your opinion on things, or it's just a matter of commenting something genuine. And the more that you comment something genuine, the more that people see you. And it's really not that difficult to stand out. In my opinion, it's not that difficult to stand out in the comments if you don't want to post things. But like you said, have your page that gives your information, because you keep showing up in the comments, people are going to click on that's what I love so much, that you just click on someone's image or name and you can see exactly who they are. But I don't think it's hard to stand out in the comments at all.
No, and if you
comment, it's not that hard.
If you think about it, if you're posting, then you have one opportunity, right? That is your post. But if you're commenting, you have, innumerable. You can just keep going on different things. I mean, I wouldn't say just comment to comment, but you have all these other opportunities. Commenting gives you a broader range. It gives you more opportunities instead of just, I'm posting about this today and this is the topic. I mean, you can speak about everything everyone else has posted that day or within the last few days. And then you have so many other opportunities. So commenting, I think, kind of is a better reach than
1,000%.
Than posting. Yeah. And it gives you, people you can understand your personality a little bit better, I think.
I totally agree. And I love that you said that. It's when you're posting, it's like, this is your one opportunity. And when you comment, you're not only commenting to the person that posted it, but everybody that reads it. We all read the comments. When social media first came out, the comments weren't really that important. Nobody really read the comments. Nowadays, we all read the comments. In whatever social media platform we're at, we always read the comments. So the comments is valuable to people that you may not know that are seeing you. And so that's why I'm glad that you said that. It's like you have so many opportunities for people to see you, find you, connect with you with just a few comments here and there. If you literally just showed up every day and made like 5 comments, you'd be ahead of the game, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And so it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, you should post some stuff, but lately I've just been too busy. I haven't had a chance, but I try to get on there and do some, commenting just to kind of see what people are writing and just to kind of keep in touch with people. But it's amazing when someone reaches out to you that you've never, they've never, interacted with you on there, but they've seen you and they say, yes, I saw you, I saw you on LinkedIn, and it's like, wow, okay. So people are watching. There are a lot of lurkers and they're just taking it in, and maybe they're going to reach out to you. So just put your best foot forward.
I would say attorneys are lurkers. They are not commenters. They are if you want to be seen, or if you want your time to be valuable, you don't want to waste your time over there because you feel like, okay, I got to market somewhere. You don't want to waste your time over there. Then make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously I could talk about this for days and days and days. So can you tell everybody where we can find you? I guess over LinkedIn.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have a website at medlawpa.com. So people can contact me there. Contact information is there.
Okay.
But yeah, either one of those.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you spending your time with me, talking about your journey, being a PA, living in this medical legal world with all these nurses. And hopefully now you're the trailblazer. And so, you've got all these PAs that are probably going to be knocking on your door, asking you how to get in, if, you already have that. So I appreciate you sharing that and giving us an insight of all about you. And so now I get to put the face and the name and the voice with your social media profile. So thank you.
You're welcome. This has been fun.
Good. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at Anna Gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.